Hello, my dear folks, my dear lovely audiences. Welcome back to the East West show. Jack Chow is your lovely host. At this show with the G&E TV, we pay lots of attention to the health of California. Speaking of the health of California, we're talking about is physical health, it is mental health, it is financial health. We're talking today for California mental health and financial health. Speaking of that, we have to thank our audiences because I know that most of you yourselves being small business owners, owners of small business which function as the backbone of our economy. And of course by that we thank the system, thank God allow us a system that we have lots of people who are organized, who care about where California is going. Speaking of that, California, every 2 years, every now and then, there's a revival, reactivation, or rejuvenate, okay, anyway, of laws that, or bills that are supposed to be filled or killed. In political terms, you're not talking about killing a bill, you're talking about, well, put it to rest a little bit, and then 2 years it comes back. Now, for this cycle of the 2 years, we have this many that comes back, and I give my personal thanks, and of course, on behalf of my audiences who love me a lot, to my good friend Tom Scott. He is the California State Director for National Federation of Independent Business. Mr. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jack. Great to be here.
I've been waiting for this day for a long time. About a month ago, Sean Louise, I believe he is the regional director, right?
He's our state communications
director. State communication director. Thanks to him, John, if you happen to be there watching, well, my appreciation goes to you too. Thank you for hooking us up because we do it for California.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. For California, by the way, sir, I did my homework.
Good.
Right, for this cycle of the 2 years. And I was amazed to see that we have this many to care about. Yeah. We have a good, bad, and ugly bills.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was little, I started learning English, right? Yeah. So first poem I learned was that good, better, best, never let it rest till good is better, better, best. Now we have a good, bad, ugly. And where do I go? Where do I want to go? Next and for next, right? Go. Yeah. Now, we have good ones, we have bad ones, and we have ugly ones, right? So the overall count, my overall count, and we have 24 good ones, 29 bad ones. So we do more bad ones than good ones. So before that, I would like you, please, to give my audience a little introduction of your organization. I know it's nonprofit. Sure. One of the very biggest nonprofit organization is nationwide, the National Federation of Independent Business. Yeah. Right? The organization, please?
Yeah, the National Federation of Independent Business we have 325,000 members nationally. Oh. We have 22,000 members here in the state of California. Mm-hmm. We're truly about small business. We cap our membership at 500 employees, but the vast majority of our members are 5 to 9 employees. I mean, 60% of our membership are truly small business.
Sure, sure. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, small business is the generator of the economy, as you said. I mean, 99.8% of business in California is small businesses. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's where the job creation is. So our organization is all about whatever it takes to stimulate the economy, to get these small businesses to grow. That's what's going to turn around and continue to improve California's economy. But the more the state legislature, the more the federal government keeps hitting small businesses with more mandates, taxes, regulations, you're stifling that growth.
You're right. You're right.
So NFIB, purely about protecting small businesses. We have a national presence. Our national presence is really focused on healthcare reform, regulatory reform, and tax reform. I mean, if you're going to stimulate the economy, this nation needs tax reform.
All right.
And taxes on small business need to be at par with large businesses. There's no reason why ExxonMobil should have a better tax rate than your small business.
You're right.
You know, it should be even.
You're right, yes. Absolutely
So
right.
tax reform, regulatory reform, healthcare reform are all critical at the national level, as in the state level.
All right.
You know, so there is a lot that needs to be done in the state of California. California's business climate continues to be dead last, according to CEO Magazine. I think 12 years in a row, we've been 50 out of 50. More needs to be done to help small businesses, you know, grow.
All right. My dear audience, I believe that we are really talking the subject with the right person, because we have never had such analysis about how California is doing. And we, first time, to many of us, first time that we know we have a nationwide organization that cares about what we are doing, right? Yeah. And by that, you're talking about the tax. The tax to me is like a rim given us by Mother Nature. And the next day when the sun, when it starts sunshine, it takes away certain moistures, right? Yeah. Evenly. You don't have to say Exxon takes X much and Jack Chow takes X, Y, Z. No, that's not unfair. Yeah. That I agree with you. I couldn't agree more with that. Any little introduction about yourself, please? Because I want to give the credibility to the big guy.
My background, I have a BA Political Science from Long Beach State.
I see.
A master's in Public Administration from the University of Southern California. And a lot of my background, public sector, worked for a lot of elected officials. I worked for Mike Antonovich when he was in the County Board of Supervisors.
I see.
Worked for Pete
Wilson. A good
Wilson.
friend of mine.
Yeah, Mike's a great guy. And Pete Wilson when he was in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, former governor.
Former governor. Worked for George H.W. Bush back in 89, 90.
Yeah, 41.
41.
41.
And so did a lot of public sector, then really got into the world of nonprofit, was a lobbyist for the Manufacturers Association, worked for the plastics industry, worked for the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce. And then I formed my own governmental affairs business. When I first met you, I was the executive director for California Citizens Against Lawsuit Abuse. Kayla. And then 2 years ago, roughly, I took this job with the National Federation of Independent Business. And I love it. Love representing small businesses.
Very good, very. And I can see that you are a man with the experiences from up and down, left and right. So, right. So that is what we want to, somebody we want to rely upon. And of course, what we do, the focus of National Federation of Independent Business is really a focus of California. It is a focus that we know that we want to do, we want to focus on, but we do not know the organization exists. That's the good part, right?
Yeah.
So, about all the bills that you brought to me, to my audiences, and your general take, please?
Well, I mean, look, California every 2 years, as you said, introduces, well, this year they introduced in the first 90 days of the legislative session, 2,700 pieces of legislation. 2,700. Ranging all over from taxes to mandates to regulations, covering all kinds of subject matter. I mean, this is just our take relative to small business at what are the good, the bad, and the ugly that are pointed at small business. There are tons of other pieces of legislation. Other states, I have counterparts in Ohio that maybe see during a legislative session 400 bills. California is
2,700.
yeah, I mean, California is the epicenter.
And yet there are only 120 of them.
Yeah.
Right? And if you do a little math, quick math here, they are quite excusable for sometime getting out of their mind because they have too much to do. Right?
Well, and they even allowed the state assembly to introduce an additional, I believe, 10 bills. You know, they were capped at 40, and they were allowed to increase that number, you know, to 50. And just the cost of introducing a bill, some have pegged at like $60,000.
For that, I even adore what Donald Trump proposes, that every time you create a new law, you omit two.
Yeah.
Or diminish two, something like that, right? My dear audience, today is one of the very, very rare moment that I got to touch base with California about California laws, right? Every 2 years, this goes in a cycle, they revive those already dead bills. We want to euthanize it, the bad ones, okay, if we may. I hate the word killing. My dear friend, Tom Scott, we go back many years, only we see each other very little because everybody is busy, and is now holding the position of the state executive director of a National Federation of Independent Business. We're talking about California laws in this cycle. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audiences, my fellow Californians. Welcome back to the show, East-West Show, with the G&E TV. I like this subject. We talk about California laws. We have good ones, we have bad ones, we have ugly ones. This is going, well, that way. Anyway, because by number, I counted, I have 24 good ones, 29 bad ones. So the number says it. With me today in talking about the bills that has to be revived or re-talked about or re-voted, or well, those are the bad ones, good ones, and ugly ones, is my good friend Tom Scott. He is the National Federation of Small Independent Business, and with the California Executive Director. Sir, still once again, welcome to the show. Right.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. I know that we have this many bills to talk about. I want to do it in a very kind of impact way, compact way. Can we pick up some examples for good laws, good bills to the audiences?
Yeah, I think, I mean, for the people, your viewers, I mean, there needs to be a lot of work in California on regulatory reform. We have tens of thousands of regulations that small business owners, most don't even know they're out there. You know, they trip over them, they inadvertently violate them, fines come down, infractions, businesses can be spending thousands of dollars in penalties and fines because they didn't realize there was a regulation. So regulatory reform is critical. There are a couple of bills, AB 12 by a Democrat, Ken Cooley, which is targeting regulatory reform. There's an Assemblyman, Vince Fong, out of Kern County, Bakersfield.
Yeah, I know him.
Vince is a great guy, Republican. He's introduced AB 77, which also will look at economic impacts on regulations. So good bipartisan, this has to be bipartisan. Democrats, Republicans working together to make the business climate better.
By nature, your law is supposed to be bipartisan.
Has to be.
Or nonpartisan.
or
either way.
nonpartisan.
Or nonpartisan,
You know,
yes.
and so regulatory reform, we've got some good things.
Yes.
Legal reform, which you know I'm very passionate about. I tend to believe that, you know, there are taxes, there are regulations, but if you get hit by a lawsuit as a small business owner, that potentially can take you out of business.
Yeah, exactly.
Regulations you sort of tolerate, taxes you tolerate.
4 or 5 years ago, you were involved with Kayla, right?
Yeah.
In Kayla, do you still remember the story of David Houston?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, David Houston, right?
Yeah.
He was almost put out of job,
Huge.
out of business.
Yeah.
For a little puppy, something on the table, remember?
Yeah.
And then there is another case that his employee sued him
Yeah.
for doing overtime by getting no pay.
Yeah.
Which is it's a matter of fact exactly the workers on their break going out, right? They come across a diner, and where's the bathroom? Says over there. For saying that in the extra time, and they accumulate the time together to XYZ number of hours, and then by timing 1.5, 150%, and there's the money you're supposed to pay. You're fine.
Yeah.
And punitive damage or so on and so forth. Guy says, "Oh my God, I better close my business." So that is the part.
Well, David Houston, Barney's Beanery, I mean, he literally paid out like $320,000 because 2 employees, one former, one current, saw an opportunity. David, if anybody gets, you know, overtime, he does. He has a director of human resources.
Okay.
But, you know, the trial lawyers walked away with about $280,000 of that.
Of course.
The employees got anywhere from 35 cents
of
to
course.
like $120. So people need to realize that, you know, all of these private attorney general act lawsuits are really not helping the worker. They're actually, the trial lawyers are the ones walking away with the money.
You're right.
The people that supposedly were hurt are getting little to nothing. So
I
legal
got a good
reform.
example myself. I once received a letter which is a check, and I never knew I was involved in a class action.
Yeah,
Do you know how much the check is?
probably not a lot.
6 pennies.
Nice.
You know how much a post stamp costs?
I think 46.
Okay. Now, six pennies, right? For them to win millions of the 6 pennies check, of course, is huge money. They even have the money to buy the stamp post to send it to you, right?
Yeah.
On that, who is winner?
You know, class action lawsuits, and there have been attempts in California to reform class action. Federally is probably where you're going to see, because the problem with a class action is you have to opt out. And to opt out of a class action is next to impossible.
Mr. Houston won because he was only stubborn enough to keep on fighting unrelentingly. Otherwise, he would have given up. Say, hey, okay, I take the fine. Okay, I walk out.
Yeah.
I noticed, sir, on this page we have the PAGA reform, and that allows 65 days. I like that. The moment I saw that, it caught my eye. I just decided I want to ask you more about it. Within the 65 days, that's the time allowed business owners to correct, right?
Yeah.
For correction of the violation, right?
This is a huge issue. Allowing businesses a period to correct. We talked about this with ADA lawsuits. Allow a business 30, 60 days, 15 days, anything. Allow them to correct before a lawsuit can go forward.
Okay.
PAGA, Private Attorney General's Act, has been abused by trial lawyers for years. And I mean, this can be anywhere from an example of on a paycheck, you don't use your full corporate name. Well, by not using your full corporate name, that's a violation of the labor code. And what these trial lawyers do is they'll go back $200 per violation, per check, go back 4 years on every employee, And you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars because you didn't have your full corporate name on a check, or you didn't have a time period on a check. That's another labor code violation. So these trial lawyers like run around the state targeting small businesses for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Rudy Salas, again, moderate Democrat, introduced this bill to help reform the Private Attorney General's Act and the abuse that's occurring.
That's good.
All good. The problem is the way the committee structures are set up. This bill has to go through the Assembly Labor Committee, and the Assembly Labor Committee, I believe, is like 7 Democrats to 2 Republicans. And these bills are really tough. Anytime you try to reform the Private Attorney General's Act, it does not get a lot of traction. But I will tell you, I think there will be an effort statewide.
Sooner or later, it's going to hit the ballot, right?
I think this issue, PAGA, there will be something on the ballot in November 2018.
Of course. And I want my audience to remember the bill name.
Yeah.
It's AB 281.
281.
AB 281, right?
Rudy Salas.
Vote yes on that.
Yeah.
And lots of my audience buy that.
Yeah.
They take what I take. It is not because I'm a great person. It's because they trust me. Because I would like. I can tell you this now. Basic is that if you make laws for the purpose of doing things right, for the purpose of doing things right, that law must be good laws. Am I right?
Yeah.
If you make laws to hurt business, to let somebody else make money. I give you an example. The ADA laws for a certain height from ground about a doorknob, right? Oh, take the mirror, for example. Mirror has to be certain whatever, in dimension or above ground, or something like that. Okay. Now, if somebody falls 1 inch short, would anybody die from it?
Probably not.
I die, I run a heart attack because of the mirror is 1 inch lower than it's supposed to be. Why you make a law to fine the owner? Why can't you say the law says I give you 65 days, exactly like this bill, AB 281 says, it allows you 65 days to move it up for 1 inch so that people do not die from that, right? So that's my point.
Well, you know, and there on ADA reform last year, there was a bill, Senate Bill 269, on minor infractions of the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, signed in 1991 by President Bush. It would allow on minor infractions like signage, parking, paint, truncated domes, 15 days to allow correction.
That's good.
That was great, introduced by a Democrat, bipartisan, and I think it went through both houses unanimously.
That's good.
So there are, I sort of title them little victories. We get bills like regulatory reform, on bipartisan legal reform. This corrective action to me is a huge issue.
It is.
If you allowed, unless it was gross negligence, if you would just allow small business owners when they become aware of a violation, a period of time, 30 days, to correct. That would make a massive difference in how the state operates. This state really just operates in a very punitive fashion.
Yeah, you're right. The fact it makes sense is because it explains the logic itself.
Yeah.
Because when you make laws, throughout the long process, voted those guys, 120 of them, to be there, sitting there, working their brains out to make laws, to do things right.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when there's the chance to do things right, why wouldn't them allow them time to do things right?
Well, and most of this legislature comes from a small business world. They either have owned a small business, they have family members that own a small business, a spouse that owns a small business. there is no reason why there needs to be a disconnect when it comes to small business. And the other thing is, you know, most small businesses do not have the lawyer on staff. They don't have the HR director. They don't have, you know, the ability.
That's why they're small.
Yeah, and so allowing businesses to take a period to correct would be a huge reform. There is a bill, Ian Calderon from Southern California, it has introduced a bill, AB 1005. This, again, relative to the Department of Consumer Affairs, which oversees a ton of small businesses, would allow corrective action periods, you know, for businesses.
To me, allowing correction time is a step forward for humanity civilization.
Oh, it's huge. It is critical for the small business climate.
Thank you, Tom, for that analysis. I believe that my audience at least will vote yes on 281. There are lots of 281 natures, such as AB 442, such as AB 496. I'm going to give you a list on the on social network about what to do.
Yeah,
but we're just taking examples. All right. My dear audience, today with me for discussion about our bills coming into November is my good friend Tom Scott. Tom Scott is the California Executive Director for Nationwide Federation for Independent Business. So we take a short break. When we come back, we pick up the bad laws, bad ones, for example. Please stay with us, please. Hello, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show, my dear fellow Californians. We got to care about California. California is such a beautiful state, you can't afford not to care about it. And the other reason is even more simpler because it is your own backyard, right? If you do not care, I don't think any New Yorkers will do, right? Because it's our homeland, right? Okay, we're talking about California laws. Californians with a legislature of 120, I believe we have 80 big brainers, and we have 40 even bigger brainers. 120 altogether make them busy for year-round. They handle 2,700 bills on a year-to-year basis, whereas other states probably do 400-500 maximum, like a day, 1 or 2 for a day, something like that. Okay. Now, anyway, with me is my good friend Scott Thomas. Thomas is the sales director, the state director, the executive director for Nationwide Federation of Independent Business. And we're talking about every 2 years there is going to revival of certain bills that were dead, supposed dead, put to death for some time. I have this scam all the time. Anyway, I don't care about that. So we used the last segment to talk about the good bills that we want to revive for the November ballot, and there are bad ones. Speaking of bad ones, I feel sad, and I feel sadder because we have more bad ones than good ones.
Yeah, that tends to be a trend in the state of California. And, you know, a lot of the bad sort of surround the issue of taxes. This state legislature is in a never-ending sort of appetite for finding new revenue. And so there are, whether it's sales tax on snack foods, you get alcohol tax. There's a bill that wants to increase the tax on alcohol by $1 on distilled spirits.
Gasoline tax.
Well, and the gasoline tax, Senate Bill 1, put through the legislature in 6 days, no legislative analysis, no real committee hearings, 5.2 billion annual tax on your viewers. It will be, I would say, $300 to $600 per citizen.
Per citizen per year, easy.
And no sunset. If anything, it's going to go up. I mean, you're already seeing gas start to move up. This gas tax will not kick in until November 1st. Then there will be also a transportation improvement fee levied on your vehicle registration fee on top of it. So, I mean, this literally, I mean, for small business owners, working class families, who probably have the largest commutes, especially in Southern California,
of course.
It will hit really big. And for the person on minimum wage who got that 50-cent increase at the beginning of the year, that's gone. It will be gone.
Yeah, you're right.
So every time a working class family thinks they're getting ahead, along comes the state legislature and levies a $5.2 billion.
They're killing their hands for eggs.
Well, and the thing that's frustrating is we took in $36 billion in additional revenue in the state of California over the past 6 years, and not $1 of it went to transportation.
All right, that's exactly.
So people should be mad, and there are efforts afoot as we speak to correct this situation. And I really encourage your listeners to look into, there's an initiative to repeal the gas tax. There are also efforts, looking at some of the legislators that voted for it. Again, no analysis, no committee hearings, 6 days it was jammed through the state legislature. I mean, and on top of that, 4 legislators to get their votes.
You're talking about behind door deals?
Well, yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, 4 legislators received $927 million in pet transportation projects for their districts to seal their votes. I mean, there's no other way to call that. Now, what do you want to call that?
I see.
I mean,
right.
I think in the 21st century that if that's how you're going to levy a $5.2 billion tax increase by buying off votes, that's a sad day for California.
Okay. And the worst thing is that the money doesn't even go to transportation.
Most of Senate Bill 1 is going to be about fixing. It's not going to be about building more or improving. It's just going to be about fixing what's out there. And even then, I mean, let's be honest, Caltrans has had audit after audit after audit against it for poor management, lack of transparency on where the money's being spent. With Senate Bill 1, they've created a supposed inspector general. I don't know how valid that position really will be. But I think people should be really upset with the gas tax. There's an effort here in the state to try and tax candy. We do not tax candy in the state.
The tax candy was quite a bit for some time, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, there are efforts, more fees on real estate transactions. I mean, we have a lot of bills out there, trying to tax, also go after confidential agreements. Trial lawyers hate confidential agreements. They hate arbitration.
Of course.
So the trial lawyers are trying to go after those areas. So there are definitely some bad bills. There are also bills that want to put more warning labels on products. This is just, I mean, the reason businesses are leaving the state of California, or quite frankly, it's becoming to a point where businesses don't want to even do business with California. So it's not just about businesses in California, but if I'm in Texas and I need to label a product a certain way to send it into this state, and I don't really understand what the law is, I'm just not going to do business with California.
Yeah, all right.
And I mean, it's same internationally.
In the meantime, Governor of Texas waving hands at us, say, "Hey, come over. I got a better laws. I got a better system. I'll charge you less on tax. Come over, do business here." lots of people are called for the event.
Well, to locate a restaurant in the state of California would probably take 2 years. In the state of Texas, you could locate a restaurant and build it within 2 months.
Okay, all right, okay.
That's why Texas is winning
You're right,
this fight.
you're right. I got a friend of mine in Temple City, and everything's ready to start to open just because of a pipe that it costs to be 1 3/4 inch or 1.5. He filled with a 1/4 inch in diameter.
Yeah.
And for that one, he has redo the whole system. That one itself, 2, 3, 4 months. I need to check about how lately did he or whatever get passed. So
We're adding so many fees, so many regulations that businesses, I mean, one, if you can even locate a business here, I mean, the costs are so exorbitant. Plus, you know, we haven't really even talked about the whole issue of affordable housing. I mean, affordable housing is probably the #1 issue in the state of California. I mean, if people can't afford to rent or live in this state, businesses are not going to be able to recruit qualified workers. They're just going to go elsewhere. And so, I mean, but there's no easy solution to the issue of affordable housing. I mean, I think the Democrats would like to just throw money at it, create funds, fees, but that's not going to solve the problem.
where does the money come from? From the sky? From a tree? Whatever.
You and I.
Right? Yeah, sure. Of course. It's your money, my money.
Yeah.
And there's a talk show on one of the most interesting radio that I follow all the time, saying that one guy asked that how are we going to see guarantee of the money, certain money used for a certain purpose?
Yeah.
Okay? Talking about ballot, talking about the measures, and the host says, "You'd better say, okay? You tell me to give you an example about within the 100 years of California history, was there once a record that the money is spent in a proper way?" Something like that.
Yeah. Well, once the money
People
goes,
lost the confidence.
Yeah, I think, and the voters should. You know, when money goes into the general fund, you know, other than education, you really don't know where that money's going.
Or even for education.
Yeah, certainly. I mean,
It goes to school faculties.
well, it goes to the faculty.
Instead of classroom.
Yeah, and it definitely, I mean, it's over half of our state budget now is going to education, and yet, you know, our schools are, what, 44th on performance? But there are a lot of issues and a lot of bad issues. I just, the one thing I would encourage your listeners to do, one, you've got to get engaged. You've got to get to know your elected officials.
Of course, yes.
And you've got to take the time, because if you don't get engaged and you don't voice your opinion, and I think this is honestly what a lot of elected officials feel, is they can just keep going down the path they're going.
Okay.
And I would encourage, you know, if you want to take a look at NFIB California's list, www.nfib.com/GBU. You can take a look at all of our good, bad, ugly. It's pretty comprehensive. I know you'll post on sort of your social medias.
And by the way, we will, it actually shows on the screen, your website. And for this segment though, I want you to actually mention some of the bills so that we will give you a reference to my audiences about what not to vote for yes for. Like say the AB 43, and I have 168, or AB 274, and the AB 479 is one. All the alcohol tax.
Yeah, AB 479.
And the AB 479, it says increase the tax on hard alcohol to find for sales for tax exemptions for female hygiene products, right? Okay, now, end of the day, we're talking about being fair. Under this beautiful flag of democracy, you're talking about equality.
Yeah.
Right? You and I, we born equal, right? Okay, if you cover my lady for her hygiene products, how about my shaving cream?
Well,
and I need a razors do that too, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is a bill that would remove the sales tax on female hygiene products and diapers.
I know, it's the wrong approach.
And then tax booze
and
to
it's
make
barking
up
at
for
the
loss.
wrong tree, all right?
Yeah.
I drink alcohol is not my problem, okay? Stop the production, you go ahead. You can do that, right?
Yeah.
And then, if you give my lady a tax exemption of their personal hygiene products, I need mine for my shaving creams.
Well, and if really the bottom line is, if this is all you have for me on tax reform, then that's a pretty sad commentary. I mean, you know, I agree with you.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just start picking out products.
It's
that
like
you
a
don't wanna
child
tax.
play. It's child play. You're taxing one product for the benefit for the other product,
No, I agree.
or you're taxing one group for the benefit of the other group. No,
Yeah.
no, right?
Well, and it's just bad public policy. But you know, and there are plenty of examples like this AB 43 that you mentioned by Assemblyman Thurman. I mean, this is a bill that if you were to get a contract with the Department of Corrections for having the privilege of that contract, you would be taxed an additional 10% on that contract for just having the privilege of having a state contract.
They're denying themselves, okay?
You know.
At time of launching contract, though, are you launching a bid? When you are launching a bid, do you launch it on the fairground? If you do not launch at the fairground, are you talking about U.S. politics?
Yeah.
So they're trapping themselves up. They're tightening themselves up. My dear audiences, we're over time on this one. I didn't realize we were doing that. But anyway, I feel kind of like resentful talking about that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
With me is my good friend, Tom Scott. Tom Scott is a wonderful guy of California. We thank God for giving him to California. And he works for National Federation for Independent Business and on a nonprofit organization focusing on Californian laws proactive with independent business.
Yeah.
For the protection of independent business law-wise. Okay. Now let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we'll pick up the ugly ones. Not only do we have good ones, but also bad ones, but also ugly ones. Stay with us. Hello, my lovely audience. Welcome back to the show. You, ladies and gentlemen, please listen to me that California is at a certain moment that we need your attention from here and there, from all directions, not only politically, but also with our economy and yet with our legislature. Our legislation is at a certain stage, not only our system, justice system getting clogged up, but also we're hurting, we're killing our own business, independent business, small business, right? With me today, talking about California bills or ill-minded bills, is my good friend, Tom Scott. Mr. Scott holds the position of a State Executive Director of Nationwide Federation for Independent Business. We're talking about laws of California. We're talking about bills of California made by our legislators, 120 in total, who are so busy producing 2,700 bills on an annual basis. Somebody can do a quick math on that, though, about how much on per capita basis. Okay, now, we have good ones, good bills. We have bad ones, bad bills. We even have ugly ones. So, Tom, do me a favor. Give me some about the example about the ugly ones.
Well, I think, you know, really ugly focuses around taxes, potential taxes. We talked certainly about Senate Bill 1, the transportation tax that every one of us are going to have to deal with. And that will hit every family in this state, 400, 600 businesses with fleets, delivery services, will be hundreds, thousands of dollars. It's not, the governor kept saying it would be $10 a month per citizen. It's going to be a lot more, and when gas starts going up naturally, people are really going to start feeling it, especially here in Southern California, where commuting is just a way of life,
Yes,
especially
you're right.
for small business owners, working families. So taxes tends to be a general theme. I would say the two ugliest bills that are out there, one, single-payer health care. You know, State Senator Ricardo Lara from Southern California, I think as a response to a potential repeal of Obamacare, has introduced what would be California's version of a single-payer health care system, Senate Bill 562. Senate Bill 562.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
All right.
This
Here, I got it.
is about as ugly as it can get, and the reason being, I think the legislative analysis came out yesterday, or Senate Appropriations, which is where this bill currently is, came out with their analysis that said it would be roughly about the cost annual, about $400 billion. Now, to put that in perspective, our state budget, that would be about twice our state budget, annual state budget, to pay for this single-payer healthcare system.
What does that mean, single-payer healthcare system?
Well, you know, government would be running healthcare. You know, there would no longer be private insurance. I mean, I'm with Kaiser Permanente. Gone would be Kaiser Permanente. Everybody would work for the state. The state would control the system. But the key thing is that, you know, people think healthcare is free. And this is not a free system. This single payer system, $400 billion, half of it's going to have to be made up with new tax revenue, which is going to be you and I. And there is one estimate that that would be a $9,100 increase per state taxpayer. Well, can you imagine your state taxes going up $9,100 to pay for a government-run healthcare system? And I'll be honest with you, I mean, look, the government has not really shown a lot of acumen when it comes to running things. They're not doing a great job at running pensions. I don't think they're going to do a very good job at running retirement plans. They shouldn't be in the business of running healthcare. And especially if you and I are going to be looking at thousands of dollars in additional taxes to pay for it. So this bill, Senate Bill 562, I think is an immediate threat. People have an illusion about what single payer, they think Canada, they think Australia. Well, look, I grew up in Canada. The Canadian system, you know, might be fine when you're younger and you're healthier and you really don't need the system like you would as you get older. But if you want to wait 12 months for a knee replacement or wait, you know, 9 months for stents, you know, the Canadian system's great. But, you know, everybody, like my father was a doctor, my sister's a nurse in the Canadian system. It is not a good system. I mean, it takes my mother 2 months just to meet with her general practitioner. So I think people are being sold a bill of goods on single payer that they just really don't understand what it is. So single payer, I would argue, is probably the number one threat, ugly bill. I think number two really gets into the area of there is a state senator here in California, Bob Hertzberg, great guy, but he wants to change how the state of California taxes. And right now, we solely tax based on income. every economic downturn we face, the state, takes a hit, takes a huge hit, because we're so reliant on income. He wants to change that. And it's not sort of an easy fight because you're dealing with a lot of different components, but he wants to tax services. Well, a tax on services, whether it's a lawyer, a dentist, a golf pro, you name it, whatever the service, lawn,
or auto shop.
yeah, pool service. I mean, there is potentially $120 billion in potential taxes if you decide to shift to taxing services. So Bob Hertzberg has Senate Bill 640. That bill is not moving. It's in the legislature. It's just sort of a vehicle. But I would argue that it's a potential, threat. I mean, so I would say single payer, tax on services, transportation tax sort of over there. And then there are just fees, bonds. There's a real estate transaction fee of $75 on every real estate transaction, SB2 by Tony Atkins down in San Diego. And this is going to create a multi-million-dollar fund to deal with affordable housing. And I think even the governor has expressed concern. Trying to tackle the issue of affordable housing is not about creating multi-million-dollar funds. And I don't know. I'm not a housing expert.
Here's the problem. Here's my problem, right? Every time they talk about needs of money, of funds, for example, about the affordable housing, especially for those homeless, like what they do in Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, stuff like that, they think of taxing us, you, me, whoever.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yes, matter of fact, there are money which is not properly spent, properly allocated. By swapping around with the money available, they can still do the job.
Yeah.
They give up doing that. They give up trying that way. They make their job much simpler. Come back to taxpayers. Hey, money. That's it.
No, this state loves money. And it doesn't necessarily like to tell you how they're spending the money, as you've stated. And it is a serious problem. I think, CalTax, which is a statewide organization that sort of monitors all tax policy, I think they've said that currently there are proposals on the table, including some of the ones that I just listed, which really didn't even include single payer, that total over $155 billion in new taxes in the state. I mean, I don't know.
That's a lot of money. $125 billion. That's a lot of money here.
Well, and I don't know how you think. I mean, this is the issue for me, is that, working families, small business owners, when all is said and done at the end of a day, maybe take home $40,000, $60,000. I mean, they're just trying to survive, pay college, pay all their bills.
Yes.
I mean, it's tight. And then a group of legislators come along and start introducing single payer transportation tax, and you see that money, your home budget, just start shrinking. So I find it ironic that the National Federation of Independent Business is the one arguing, trying to help working families and people get up that ladder, whereas these policies that the legislative majority are pursuing are the ones that are actually keeping people down or hurting people in their ability to move up that ladder. And I think at some point there's going to be a tipping point where people are going to be like, enough is enough. This is not helping me.
Well, yeah, of course. Someday, somehow, it's going to reach a limitation.
Yeah.
When taxpayers say, hey, this is it, right?
Yeah.
That's the end of it. We can't take any more. So
And I think the transportation tax pushed, I think there's also, quite frankly, your listeners might be aware of the issue of Prop 13. People that bought their homes early, in life, are assessed a 1% tax on their properties. Well, there is a group of folks in this state that want to get rid of Prop 13. And you would have a complete political upheaval if there is a run on Prop 13 in this state, whether it's trying to reassess how commercial property is taxed or residential property. I mean, like, I bought my home in '97. I pay $4,000 a year property taxes on the assessed value from 1997. Well, there are a group of people that want that stopped. They want it assessed on what the current value is.
Yeah, right now.
And, I mean, that would generate billions of additional revenue for this state. Again, and little to no checks or balances. I mean, one party controls the ball game. And,
yeah, you're right.
It's just not a healthy...
And there are some interest group involved. I know for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I mean...
You know what? If I someday become a legislator, I'll make laws to charge tax by the size of your mouth. The bigger the mouth, the more they get taxed. How about that?
I like that.
You like that,
That's
right?
worth
And I'll check with my friend, Sean Louise, and I'll call him after the show if he agrees with me. And I propose to our legislators, let's charge our talkers by the size of the mouth.
Definitely.
So, all right, good, very good. And we're over time, a little over time. All right, my dear audiences, we thank you very much for watching, and I'm glad that we did something good for you. Something good being the fact that we brought you some bills, which I will later on put on my WeChat. You will reference about what to. If I were you, I would vote yes on this one, no on that one. I would let you know, share with you how I would vote. How about that, right?
That'd be great.
And I thank the guidance from my dear friend Tom Scott, the California Executive Director for National Federation for Independent Business, who shared about his takes about all the laws, 24, not laws yet, bills, 24 good ones, 29 bad ones, and 3 ugly ones.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. Thank you, my dear audiences. And this is not only time. We will come back for this on this issue too. And keep your eyes open. Thank you.